Good evening, everybody, and welcome to round 12 of the Division 2 season here in the Midwest F1 League. Tonight we are at the Marina Bay Street Circuit in Singapore for what should be a very entertaining Grand Prix, to say the least. Hotspot on the call with you once again here. And, I think only 13 of us tonight. I don't know if this is going to be a full race replay or just a highlight reel, but either way, should be in for a fun one tonight, under the lights, no less. A track that has undergone a lot of changes in the recent years, and a track that to this day still provides some fantastic racing, no matter what cars or what series is on this circuit. I mean, this circuit always will hold a special place in my heart. After all, it was the first F2 series win that I took here. That was the feature race. Of course, I think I won at least two more sprint races after that here. So I do have a soft spot for the circuit, as many people do. Quickly, we'll go over the driver and constructor standings. Lancia atop the table, 310, only 3 points between himself and Final Flame. It's Cake Thomas third, Ayahuasca fourth, Electric Blade fifth. Actually, matter of fact, Ayahuasca leads Electric Blade and Say, and also Scavney, by 3 points. 226, 225 for both Electric Blade and Say, and Scavney at 223. It's a massive battle going on for that fourth spot. And not far off after that is that final promotion spot to Division 1 next season. We'll quickly get everything set up here. Oh boy, wrong buttons. It'll be that of Brian Mosser, 8th, and Boo Mason, 9th. Actually tied with Mandigos for that 9th spot at 201 apiece. Brian Mosser, 206. Great battles happening up and down the grid. Here in Division 2, as far as the constructors are concerned, it's McLaren atop at 503, Aston Martin 481, Ferrari 472, Alpine 469, Williams 369, 358 for Mercedes, 318 for Haas, 288 for Alfa Romeo, lead AlphaTauri by 2 at 286, and then Red Bull 262. I've been pinged by Brian Mosser. It'll be that of a dry race in qualifying all the way through, so it should be fantastic here tonight. Our first driver out on track is going to be that of Hightower in the Williams. I'm assuming we're just going to be seeing people. Well, he's actually taking the medium tires, as so is Scavney and Ayahuasca. Now, Scavney and Ayahuasca. Well, and now Brian Mosser telling me it's going to be a wet race, according to his schedule. So perhaps it's going to go from dry to wet. Is kind of what it's kind of the gist I've gotten from it. Although either way, Singapore obviously being as humid as it is in that part of the world, typically the rain always in play no matter what. Why is my button not working for Hightower there? That's kind of odd. I don't even know. But this part of the world very, very humid, and the rain very common. 3 drivers in the medium so far, Hightower, Scavney, and Ayahuasca. As Hightower making his way towards, what corner is this? I had my map open, but my phone is like really, really hot right now, and if it blows up, then we're going to be screwed. So this track did go from 23 corners down to 19. They've taken out the stadium section through the middle of the track, through Sector 3 here. The Scavney's going through now. Now, that used to be the stadium section, as mentioned, but now what it is, it's just this straight shot down towards turn 16 and 17, obviously, at turn 14 on down. As it turns out, this track actually has corner names. So we'll go through here, lap 1 here, with that of Hightower through Shears corner of turn 1, 2, and 3, and now 4. Now we up to turn 5 now, DRS after that. Got to be careful of exit. That wall does creep up on you very quickly. Heading towards Memorial Corner, turn 7. Coming up here on the medium tires as well. Here's turn 7, down to Stamford, turn 8. Padang, turn 9 after this. The left-hander here, it's actually quite a tight left-hander as opposed to what you see with the naked eye there, heading towards the Singapore Sling corner. Remember, that used to be a very interesting chicane there that would send cars a-flying. Not anymore. Now over the bridge, heading towards turn 13. Got to be careful going over the bridge there. Not a lot of traction in that section of the track. Any sort of, that is the truth now, isn't it? Not a lot of traction through that section of the circuit. It's very much a kind of a crapshoot whether or not if you can get the power down correctly or not in time through Connaught turn 14 and down turn 15, down this back straight now towards the right-hander of 16 and then the left-hander of 17. It'll be 18 and 19 after that to round out this lap. We'll go along with Scavney. I think he might be on a better one here. Down the back straight, heading towards turn 16. Of course, it'll be a time lap on the board for that of Hightower. No, he's actually gone into the pit lane, so it'll be that of Scavney, the first driver here. With a time to his name, I don't think it's going to be quite representative. 1:31.503. Yeah, I'm assuming we're going to see quicker than that. It'll be that of Israel coming to the line next up. And I tell you what, well, maybe not. Maybe I lied. A 1:30.050. I mean, if Scavney, if that's his time, that's pretty much the average of which we're going to see as Fire Up Logan 1:34.07. Then I guess that's a pretty halfway decent lap there from Scavney, especially on the medium tires. I don't think he can complain too much about that. We do have Ayahuasca making his way through Sector 3 now down the backstretch. Heading towards 16 and 17 here. And I cannot believe how warm physically my phone is. That is obviously my internet connection. So if that goes off, we are screwed, as it turns out. Ayahuasca 1:29.793, a quarter of a second clears Israel at the moment. It was the McLaren of Kate Thomas who's gone 4th. Behind him, the Alfa Romeo of Noganator who's gone 5th. Good battle for the top 4 at the moment. The rest of the grid slightly spread out, although next up looks to be the Alpine of Brian Mosser. Championship contender here in Division 2, not 3 seasons ago. As making his way through the final stages of the lap now goes 8th. Scavney's going to be making his way back into the pit lane here shortly, I can assure. Adaltonian as well, so I'm pretty sure our first round of timed attempts is over, especially because that of Lancey has invalidated his attempt. So Ayahuasca, your current provisional pole sitter, granted it's only a quarter of a second, so perhaps is there improvement to be had from some of the drivers around. Just a quick reminder of the schedule coming up here. We got France Circuit Paul Ricard next time out for what will be the last ever rendition of the French Grand Prix Circuit Paul Ricard, as it's not being included in F1 24 to the best of my knowledge. And that was a race I actually sponsored for this season. So glad to see that added to the schedule because I do love Circuit Paul Ricard. It is not the best track there, but it's got a lot of character, and given the opportunity, does provide some great racing. So the final couple of drivers making their way through now. Hightower is actually out on another one here, now fitting the soft tires, as well as that of Andrew Mason. We'll have to wait and see what these guys are able to do here. Lancey has decided to go out for another timed attempt here after invalidating on the previous go-round. So maybe perhaps is going to be able to find one better. Let's see what he's got here, making his way in through Sector 3 now. Very, very careful to be on the exit of turn 14 there. The track limits on the outside does creep up a lot quicker than you may initially expect until you're over that white line and into the wall on the outside. Through 16 and 17 now, 18 and 19 the final two. Very quick final 2 quarters. It's very challenging as well if you've not got enough downforce. 1:29.771 for Lancey. 22 1,000ths of a second ahead of Ayahuasca. And suddenly the battle for a provisional pole heating up here. 10 minutes to go. Next up, Andrew Mason starting his. We do have Hightower making his way through the first set of corners now. After being one of the first drivers out on track, started on the medium tires, didn't quite like them. I think invalidated his lap either way. Made his way into the pit lane. This is his second attempt here as he makes his way. Exiting turn 5. There's 6. Through Sector 1, what's he got now? 27.6. Looks okay to me. No complaints. Quicker than I'll ever be. Turns 8 and 9 now. Bit of a lock up there on the way into turn 9, which is odd because that's a bit of a slower speed corner considering that's a very short run out of 8. In through Singapore Sling. Doesn't it actually takes a bit of a wide line through that. Sometimes you'll see drivers really try to gun it close to the inside. Perhaps if we go on with Anbu Mason here. See that orange wall to the corner there on the left side? Right there. If you can hit that well enough, not the barrier itself, but if you can just get that correctly, you can shave off a good couple of tenths through that corner if you just nail that line through and you take the apex on the inside as tight as you can to that orange barrier. Through 16 and 17 now. Hightower looking a halfway decent lap here. Whether or not it'll be good enough for pole, yet to be seen through the final two corners. Holds a good amount of speed on the way out. Only good enough for 8th, 131.545. Matter of fact, less than a tenth behind that of Scavney. So the top 5 within a second of each other here. The next, what is that? P6, 7, 8, and 9. And also 10 within a second of each other. And then the final 3, Brian Mosser, Chief Braids, and Gottney Weeb, have a bit of work to do there. Ayahuasca now, starting a new one. Provisional pole sitter up towards Lancey's most previous run. Lancey in the pits for now. So Ayahuasca's got an opportunity here to put together a timed attempt, and that somebody had gone off in the wall there coming out of turn 3. Bit of carbon fiber shed in the inside barrier. And that would be the Mercedes there of Anbu Mason, it seems, as that car has not got any front wing anymore. Yep, that is absolutely true. That car is, well, it's gone. Ayahuasca, purple sector 1 for him here. Exits very nicely, although has to be said, took a lot of the exit there, nearly getting into the wall on the outside. Down the straight, heading towards turn 10. See, he's taking a lot of the curve on the inside. I think they could probably get more if they just hit the brakes a little bit earlier. That was very close to the outside wall there. Over the bridge in towards turn 13. Good looking attempt so far from Ayahuasca as the Dutchman of Lancey. Now on an outlap with 7 minutes to go. So a second faster through Sector 2 for that of Ayahuasca. Now we thought it was going to be looking quite close for provisional pole here, but for the time being, as he makes his way down the backstretch, if he's a second up through Sector 2, Lancey is going to have some load of work to do, that's for sure. Towards corners 18 and 19 now, and across the line is going to be that of Ayahuasca in the 128s. 128.786. Gets Lancey by nearly a full second. I mean, I don't understand how you find time on this circuit like that. He's either made a total hash of Sector 2 on his most previous attempt, or he has found something very, very useful. And I think either of those options may be true, because Ayahuasca has blown that previous provisional pole time out of the water. So it'll be that of Kate Thomas. Well, he's invalidated, and he's missing a front wing to that fact. Fire up flow behind him, making his way in towards 16 and 17 now. Very heavy over the inside curb. 5 minutes and 50 seconds remaining here. Probably one or two more attempts, or probably one more attempt at most after this. Fire flow's improved by a tenth and a half. 5th place for him at the moment. Less than a tenth of a second behind Scavney for the 4th spot. Scavney has decided that this is not going to be a timed lap for him. We do have the Alpine then of Brian Mosser on a flyer at the moment. And as I say that, he has invalidated that attempt. Got Chief Braids on an outlap here. He'll need some work. 4 seconds off the pace at the moment. Coming up next around the line, it's Ayahuasca probably into the pit lane here. We do have the Ferrari of Israel on a outlap now. His teammate of Fire Up Flow, as we've mentioned, has gone P5 along the way. We've got the AlphaTauri of Scavney in the pit lane. We do have the McLaren of Lancey is going to be on an in-lap here shortly. Well, I say that. This was supposed to be his timed lap. He's invalidated somewhere along the line. I'm assuming it might be coming out of turn 7, as he's probably pushed wide for the left-hander. Either that or maybe has he cut a corner going before the bridge. Either of those options probably reasonable. And for the time being, it doesn't appear that he's going to be making this more of a cool-down lap to begin a new one here shortly. He's actually going full throttle here. He's going to have to get back into the pit lane very quickly if he wants an opportunity to put on new tires and get that car refueled. Into the pit lane goes Lancey after his timed lap goes wrong. Israel in an out lap still. We've got Brian Mosser making his way, although on a lap that won't count, through Sector 2. Chief Braid's making his way through Turn 9 now, down the stretch towards the Singapore Sling at Turn 10. Heavy lockup on the way in, goes deep into the corner. Over the bridge he goes, actually holds it quite nicely there. I was expecting to see it be taken a little bit more hesitantly. Exits turn 13, down the final DRS straight now, although if I'm to be corrected, I believe this straight coming out of 14 here in real life does have DRS. I could be wrong, either way. Several tenths quicker for Chief Braids, but for the time being he'll need a lot to get around Brian Mosser. So Israel on a flyer now. Chief Braid's making his way through, well, he's gone through 16 and 17. Here's 18 and 19 now. And across the line is Chief Braids, stays 12th despite improving 0.6 of a second. We've got Israel, who's invalidated there, I'm afraid. Scavney has just made his way out of the pit lane. He'll be starting a new one here shortly. We've got Kate Thomas going over the bridge now. We've got the Williams of Hightower, who's invalidated. Chief Braids, as we've seen. And now we do have Ayahuasca on his way out. If Ayahuasca can improve any more, well, he'll certainly shatter the pole record. The race record may stay intact, as it appears we will have rain going in the session. That's the gist that I've gotten out of Brian Mosser. Kate Thomas on an outlap here. He'll be starting a new one shortly for what is certainly going to be his final attempt of the session. 2 minutes and 15 remain. Behind him, that's the Williams of Hightower. Across the line goes Kate Thomas. Let's go along with him. We do have Lancey on an outlap now. Ayahuasca making his way through Sector 2. So he'll be on one here shortly. Exiting Turn 3 is Kate Thomas. Not bad. Through Turn 4 in towards the very quick right-hander at Turn 5. He's taking a lot of curve on the inside. DRS activated. He's got a great toe from his teammate of Lancey here. Brilliant toe, actually. When this sort of thing is worked out between teammates, it does look very, very good. Only 8/100ths quicker through Sector 1 for Kate Thomas, and I'd have to believe that the toe was a lot of that. 90 seconds remain here in the qualifying session. We'll have to wait and see if he's able to improve any more. Scavney has started one now. Minute 15, AlphaTauri making his way through the first couple of corners. We've got an Alfa Romeo of Chief Braids into the pit lane. We've got the Mercedes Van Boom Mason, I believe, about to start one here, although it was about 1/10 and a half slower through Sector 2. So coming across the line now is that of Anbu Mason. What does he have to offer? It is going to be slower by 0.2. He's got time to start a new one here. Whether or not he has tires is the next question. Ayahuasca next up here, beginning a timed lap here shortly. Lancey making his way through Turn 14. Israel's gone way deep in the corner at Turn 14, but keeps it on track. We do have next on the line the AlphaTauri of Adel Tonian about to begin one. Down the pit straight he goes. The Alfa Romeo of Noganator next up behind. We got the McLaren of Kate Thomas, who's lost it, coming out of Turn 17 on his final attempt. On an attempt where I think, if I saw that correctly, was at least 1/10 and a half quicker through Sector 2. And that's about as unfortunate as it gets. We've got a final couple of drivers on timed laps now. Fire Up Flow will get to the line and begin his. Next up will be the Alpine of Ayahuasca making his way through Turn 7. Sorry, that's Turn 8 at that point. So the AlphaTauri of, it's not Adel Tonian, it's that of Scavney, will be the first driver to complete his timed attempt, although I believe is 3/10 of a second slower through Sector 2. Across the line goes Scavney, goes fourth, actually pulls a lot back, finishes about 5/100ths shy. Next up is the Mercedes Van Boom Mason, who is purple Sector 2, and down the backstretch he goes with very little to no battery remaining here for Van Boom Mason. Out of the 16-17 here, 17-18 now. Anbu's got a chance to improve, and he does, up to 6th for the Mercedes, a half a second better despite running out of battery well late on in the lap then. We've got Ayahuasca making his way through 16 and 17, and now 18 and 19 now. Driver has been quick all day. Provisional pole once more. Yes, he does. 128, 392, and one of the best laps you'll ever see of the Singapore circuit. Adeltonian stays 8th, improves by a quarter of a second. Noganator's gone 6th. Next up is going to be, it's not going to be Israel. He's invalidated his final attempt. Fire up flow, 2.5 seconds slower through Sector 2. I don't believe that's going to be one to hold on to for him as well. We do have, well, it's not going to be Hightower. It's going to be Brian Mosser. 7/10 quicker through Sector 2. Behind him, the other Ferrari, and then that of Lancey, the lap that everybody's looking for here. Across the line is Brian Mosser, goes 10th, but now Lancey, does he have enough? No, he's invalidated his final attempt, and it is going to be Ayahuasca on pole by nearly a second and a half. Gottney Weeb did not put together a timed attempt. Ayahuasca on pole. Israel third. Lancey second, Israel third. Top 5, within 2 seconds, positions 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Actually, within 0.6 of a second of each other. It's going to be a very good battle in the midfield, but Ayahuasca has really dominated this qualifying session, but now the question is, can he keep it the same in perhaps the rain coming up here shortly? So the formation lap underway now. But as it turns out, I'm not seeing the drivers prepared for the rain as if I really thought they were going to be. Brian Mosser said dry race, then he said wet race, which led me to believe that towards the back end of the session we're going to be getting the rain, but well, that's going to have to be the case if we do get any rain, because, well, if there was, somewhat immediately, then we would see these guys, on the softs more than anything else, but the grid dominated by those on the medium tires, only 5 of which have gone hard for this occasion. Ayahuasca, Lancey, and Israel. This is interesting here. We got the top 3 on the same tire compound. Scavney, who usually prides himself on going to the opposite compound, is currently on the preferred tire, that being the mediums. Ayahuasca, Lancey, and Israel have all gone hard, and that leads me to believe that these 3 are prepared to duel it out with each other for as long as they need to, until that rain, perhaps if it does come in, comes in. So these guys being on the hard tells me that if we do get any rain, it'll be towards, well, the back end of the session. These guys kind of in the midfield here are either planning for it to remain dry or perhaps rain somewhere in the not-so-distant future. Brian Mosser and Gottney Weeb, the fellows who have also gone to the hard tire. Gottney Weeb did not put together a qualifying attempt, which leads me to believe he's going to be a struggle one tonight. That's for sure. This track, you need a lot of practice, you need a lot of laps, and Gottney Weeb, having not participated in the qualifying session, whether he had a ban or what the case was, this one's going to be quite difficult for him. But Ayahuasca, atop the grid here, he was quicker than Lancey by almost a second and a half in the qualifying session. The top 5 were in relatively a league of their own. However, P6 down to 10 or 11, was within 0.6 of a second of each other. It will be a great battle in the midfield here. That part's for sure, I am confident in. But we do have Ayahuasca on the outside heading towards turn 1, about to line up in his grid box to his inside. The Flying Dutchman of Lancey, who is going to be looking to put together another astounding showing here. And again, the game refuses to give me one good camera angle, all looking at the inside of the car. As here we are. Lights turning on here in Singapore, 3, 4, and eventually 5. And they are off. Now, it looks to me like Ayahuasca's gotten away much better than that of Lancey. Matter of fact, Israel's going to have a fair shot at the... Well, I tell you what, I thought that was the case. Lancey has really battled Ayahuasca into the first quarter. Contact me. Look at the Ferrari in the middle trying to split it, and Ayahuasca goes round. That I did not expect, and now suddenly it's Scavney and that of Israel side by side here. As Scavney around the outside, and now we have a situation, Ayahuasca, the driver to beat, at the back. And I don't even know. I mean, it was Lancey and Ayahuasca. They were side by side through the first combination of corners as Fire Up Flow was side by side there momentarily with Noganator now in towards turn 7. They were side by side through the opening corner. Through turn 2, it looked as if Ayahuasca had almost been gone off track in the side by side with Lancey, and the Ferrari tried to shoot the line and go for broke. And, well, Ayahuasca is the one who's gone broke down in 13th. That one will surely be looked at by the stewards, it has to be said. But that has promoted Scavney to the second spot. But as Israel tries to find a move here, Fire Up Flow 4th, Noganator 5th, Cake Thomas 6th, Adaltonian 7th, and Boomason has lost a spot. Everybody in the top 7 cars has gained at least one position, barring that of Israel. Making their way down the backstretch now. It looks as if, after all odds, Lancey will be the one to lead the grid around the final corner and lead the first lap of the Grand Prix. Ayahuasca will not be happy about that one, but who might be happy is that of Scavney, because he's in position here on Lancey, and he's on better tires, at least for the immediate goings. Remember, he's on the mediums. Israel has held well in third, starting on the hards, and for the time being stays there. Now as they go through turn 5, it looks as if, will that of Lancey be able to hold his lead? And I think he's got it by a well enough margin here. Israel's not got no chance back to Scavney. Fire Up Flow was looking at it at Israel in fairness, but won't be close enough to make that happen. Towards the back, we do have a couple of battles going on here. Adaltonian up 2 spots from 9th to 7th. Gottney Weeb has gone up to 10th. He stayed out of trouble. Brian Mosser's lost a spot. Hightower's lost a spot. And Ayahuasca, of course, has lost 12. And thankfully for Ayahuasca, at least, it doesn't appear that there's any damage on his car. Well, I tell you what, Chief Braids really hung it out there next to the wall before the bridge. That one got very close. Gottney Weeb may have a fair shot at making his way around the Alfa Romeo here. In towards turn 14 as they snake their way out of the corner and now make their way down the backstretch. Lancey has the advantage by a fair margin over Scavney here. Of course, the interval timing's not really working as well as they should on the left side of your screen. But what you can see is that Lancey will now lead the next lap of the Grand Prix. DRS will be activated. They'll have that coming out of turn 5. Scavney, however, the fastest lap of the session so far on those medium tires. Only within 0.7 of a second of Lancey, but has had a bit of a poor trip through turn 1. May lose some time. And Lancey, it has to be said, getting away very, very well. It's going to depend on if Scavney can get away well enough out of this 5th corner. Will he have any opportunity with DRS? He's got 45% battery already. He has been using it up in the early stages here. Lancey's still in his 90s. That would tell me Scavney really trying to work and find some sort of opportunity to get up close to the top, but for the time being, Lancey has him beat. The pair of the Ferraris within a couple of tenths of each other now. Noganator hanging in on this battle as well, of course, being on the medium tires too. Through the Singapore Sling they go. They'll make their way to Sector 3 here momentarily once they go exit the turn 13 straight here in towards the very tight hairpin left-handed corner. Scavney will not have DRS back to Lancey. Israel actually had to quite work there in order to hold off his charging teammate of Fire Up Flow. As down the backstretch now they will invert positions. Fire Up Flow getting around Israel. As now making their way towards 18 and 19, we can begin the 4th lap of the Grand Prix. Ayahuasca has gotten around Hightower. Oh, that was contact there. They were side by side. Hightower found the retaining wall there on his left. Ayahuasca now having to try to negotiate with his teammate here. Brian Mosser behind by 2.5 seconds over behind Chief Braids now. Scavney has actually worked his way back to within DRS range here. Noganator now trying to find a move on Israel. 0.5 second between the two. Israel's got 0.5 second to his teammate ahead. Matter of fact, Ayahuasca now battling with Brian Mosser, the two Alpine drivers. Inverting positions now. He's got 2.5 seconds to Chief Braids for the 10th spot. Gottney Weeb actually looking like he could potentially reel in Andrew Mason here relatively shortly as the grid making their way now through Sector 2. Over the bridge they go. Scavney, I would argue, for the time being, really losing time in that second sector. For the time being, through the first sector, it looks as if they are evenly matched. Perhaps even Scavney has Lancey beat. But in the second sector, Scavney is losing, I would estimate, up to 0.4 of a second per lap at the moment. Lancey's got that slow speed section absolutely nailed to a T right now. As down the backstretch they go towards 16 and 17, fire up flow. Whilst trying to hold on to this battle here, has to be said, starting to fall behind a little bit, although not by some sort of ridiculous margin. The top three will have DRS to each other here. That of, actually, matter of fact, Israel did not have DRS to his teammate that time by. Lancey, 98% battery, Scavney, 19, fire up flow, 41, Israel, 76, as we have a overtake at the back, Ayahuasca getting around Chief Braids there. So on their way out of turn 5. Down the straight they go. Scavney within a couple of tenths here, 0.4 to be exact. But Lancey surely using his energy store in more of a defensive role. And Scavney will stay behind for the time being, as we've got Gottney Weeb and Andrew Mason side by side on the way into turn 7. As Gottney Weeb either promotes himself or holds the position from the charging Mercedes behind. Here they go towards the bridge. It looks as if Lancey, half a second. Now that time, Scavney had him pretty well matched going through Sector 2. Not necessarily all that much time lost for the AlphaTauri this time by. Whereas in previous laps he was behind by gaps of almost 0.9 of a second or more. So we can go ahead and we can go ahead and assume that AlphaTauri might be better in the straight line. I would say for the time being, if that slight bit of information that I obtained just then, they are about right even on pace. So down the pit straight they go. Let's measure the braking zone. 175, and I would assume right there as well. We'll get a better look at it as they exit turn 5. Although 0.7 of a second still between the two. I would say they are right on each other evenly with straight line speed here. At the timing line, it's going to be 175. And of course with DRS, but in the 180s is that of Scavney. Of course, being on the medium tire helps as well, but still, that is one hell of a pace advantage. A side by side is Gottney Weeb getting that 7th spot over Adaltonian. So Gottney Weeb up 6 positions since the off. Adaltonian now to a net of just 1. And Mason loses 2. Ayahuasca has actually clawed his way back to 10th after the opening corner mishap between himself, the Dutchman of Lancey, and that of Israel. Still no indication that rain in the picture for the drivers, although definitely keep your eyes peeled, as anything could happen under the night sky. You know, racing is... Oh, well, Ayahuasca, no! Coming out of turn 13, Ayahuasca loses all the progress he had previously made, back down to 12th. Heartbreaking stuff for the Alpine driver who... this Hightower, I think, may have just hit the wall there coming out of turn 8. Heartbreaking stuff for Ayahuasca, who has shown us time and time again that he is a very talented driver in his own right. But I'm afraid tonight may just not be the night for him here. Sometimes as a racer, that sort of thing does happen. The best thing you can do is just move on. Especially in a situation like that where there's not much really to learn. It arguably not his fault for the opening lap incident. Just one of those forget moments as we have Hightower spun round at turn 14. As we have the Alpines swapping positions again. Although in fairness, when you're 5 seconds behind the 10th spot, I'm not sure it's going to matter who's in front at that point. Scavney that time taking a much more tight line through that 10th corner than what we were seeing. Remember, I was talking about that you could kind of trek to the inside near to the orange barrier on the end. That's kind of what Scavney's done, and he's still staying within striking distance of Lancey. Of course, he's not really close enough to make the overtake happen, but at least he's within DRS range, which is crucial. Because you get Lancey in free air, he does start to pull ahead. You get him in free air without DRS to the car behind, he's as good as gone. And now look at this, down the backstretch, Noganator looking for a move on Israel here. See what, the pair of the Ferrari drivers having a halfway decent day so far. Noganator still to the back end of Israel. He'll get DRS down the pit straight here momentarily. And Israel had to check up big time there as to not exceed track limits. Noganator may have one into the first corner here. He's going to look to the inside. Side by side, still between the two. And I tell you what, good battle this. Noganator gets ahead only just, but I think Israel's still right there. Still to the right rear tire, and no, finally tucks back in line. Who was ahead at the detection zone? It was that of Noganator. Israel will get DRS. Meanwhile, atop the grid, Scavney is less in the gap to 3.5 tenths of a second. Israel's going to have to try it round the outside through turn 7, and he gets it to go. Wow, good one there. With or without DRS, that's an impressive move, has to be said. That's a big thing that people will like to debate on, is whether or not DRS is an addition or a takeaway from the motor racing. Well, I tell you what, either way, Israel has had to work that position from turn 1 all the way to turn 7. Whether or not he had DRS is beside the point. That was a good move. Up towards turn 14 now. Scavney half a second on Lancey, but I would assume those medium tires are going to be losing out here very shortly. They've held on very well for the time being, but I'm afraid in the long run they're going to be no match for the hards. 16 and 17 now, still 6 tenths of a second here. Looking very good as that AlphaTauri. Up 2 spots since the off. Down the pit straight they go, not necessarily closing in at a rate to provide panic to Lancey ahead, but either way, Scavney, one of the most tenured drivers in Midwest F1. Oh, a bit of a slide there coming out of turn 3. Can he make something happen exiting turn 5 now? Looks as if Lancey is starting to pull away for the time being. Scavney, despite having DRS, does not manage to shave more than a tenth off the time. Do also have as well Andrew Mason trying to battle Adaltonian here. Adaltonian's lost about 5.5 seconds back to Gottney Weeb for the 7th spot. Andrew Mason, despite being down 2 spots, is actually in a position where he could look to attack here shortly. Remember, here's a look at the tire lives. Hightower has pit relatively recently for those hard tires. Perhaps was he missing front wing and he's decided to come in and then get new tires to boot? Well, you have to when you pit, but either way. So that'll make it 6 drivers on the grid now who've gone hard. Lancey, Israel, Gottney, Weave, Ayahuasca, Brian Mosser, and Hightower. The Alpines being on similar strategies there, that might get interesting. See, but the tandem of Fire Up Flow and Israel have gone opposite strategies from each other, so there won't be any confusion entering the pit lane, perhaps, unless a safety car is to find itself on track. 4 tenths of a second now. I tell you what, Scavney's closed the gap a lot. Let's see, does he get a better go? So you see there, that's interesting, because I think Lancey really took that corner better. He chose not to dive deeper on the brakes. He was able to round that corner better, which as Scavney took a very much more direct line in, heavier on the brakes, and had to deal with the wall on the outside, whereas Lancey, all he needed to do was to just exist. And that run out of that 5th corner is probably the reason why Scavney did not get close enough to make something happen that time. Do have a 10th of a second here. Ayahuasca to the left side of Chief Braids. Chief Braids on the medium tires. Perhaps is that a sign of the times here as the mediums will start to wear to a point of which the hards are better. And we have a safety car. Well, hang on just a minute. Well, that would be the reason why. Israel has lost the car going over the bridge. He's perpendicular. His front wing is missing. And the safety car on track for the first time here in Marina Bay. Israel, I'm assuming, took a heavy tank slapper. Getting onto the throttle, exiting turn 11 before the bridge. And that car is now missing a front wing. And we'll get our first round of true pit stops. Lancey on the way in. We're assuming mediums for him. Scavney assuming hards. And medium tires as expected. Scavney to the hards here. Dueling pit stops for the Ferraris, although Fire Up Flow has appeared to have taken those are the hard tires, yep. Noganator in for hards, the Aston Martin in for mediums. So we're going to get a pretty good flip-flop of tire strategies here. Jake Thomas to the hards. Looks like Israel in with the wing change to the medium tires either way. Naturally, as it would be, the majority of the grid now going to be on the hard tires. We've got 4 of which who have gone from hard to medium here, as that'll be Lancey, Gotney, Weeb, Israel, Ayahuasca, and now Brian Mosser. And the rest of the grid, who were previously medium, have now gone hard. Out on track there. Chief Braids is actually, well, he's either stayed out. No, he hasn't stayed out. He's just on his way out of the pit lane now. Lancey, your leader, has led from the off here. Scavney's been a firm challenger behind, but will he be able to keep that up with now being on the slower compound of tires? We'll have to wait and see. I'll step aside. I hate to interrupt myself here, but Israel has actually lost the car again, this time under safety car, and about to head into turn 10. He's missing another front wing, or at least, well, no, it's just gone. I do not know what has happened there with Israel. But what I can tell you is that car's going to be back into the pit lane here shortly. Hightower still working his way to try to get back around here. Safety car still out on track. As Israel, a drive-through penalty now for falling too far back. Talk about rubbing salt and orange juice into the wound. Well, I don't really know what salt in the wound would feel like, but I can assure you that both that and orange juice is probably not good. Especially if it's got pulp in it. Ugh. Anyways, Lancey making his way around the final corner. The safety car will surely be delayed for at least another lap, perhaps 2. Coming up here. I'll step aside once more. Way in this time by. We'll begin again at the 14th lap of the Grand Prix, just a couple of laps shy from midway. So far, you've seen Lancey dominate after the opening lap incident between himself, Ayahuasca, and that of Israel. Ayahuasca's down to 9th, Israel down to 13th after bringing out the safety car, and then crashing once more under safety car. As you can see, the majority of the grid has gone hard, everybody else has gone medium. Still don't know if there's going to be rain in the picture or not. Brian Mosser initially said the race was going to be dry, then he said it changed and was going to be wet. So I don't know. We're just going to wait and see what happens. There's a look at your tires. Israel still has a drive-through penalty to negate here for, quote-unquote, falling too far back, according to race control. And we are underway. Lancey gets a great jump. Scavney may actually be under pressure from Fire Up Flow heading through this first set of corners. Although, has to be said, don't think we're going to see many moves until DRS gets made, but for the time, activated. But either way, Ayahuasca now to the left side of Adoltonian, making kind of an idea through turn 5 now. I tell you what, performs the good old switchback. Adoltonian goes to the outside. Ayahuasca goes from outside to in, and will take the spot away from the AlphaTauri driver if he can clear him. Into turn 7, he can't clear him. They're going to be side by side still. He'll have to go actually off track to get around Adoltonian. Whether or not that's classified as leaving the track and gaining an advantage, I'm not too sure. I don't think Adoltonian's the type of guy to find that to be a report. I can't even remember the last time Adoltonian did make a report, to be honest with you. But either way, that one got a little close for my liking. As they make their way now exiting turn 13. Ayahuasca now within a couple of tenths of Van Boo Mason. He's going to look to have this one to the inside of turn 14. Not quite, but if he looks for the switchback here, again, he's on the medium tires. He's going to be much better off on pace. Down the backstretch they go. Ayahuasca to the inside, and it looks as if he will have it on Van Boo Mason. He will clear the Mercedes by the time they get to turn 16 and 17. Very nicely done for Ayahuasca. Van Boo Mason may have an opportunity to strike back if he holds on, but who is not going to have the ability to strike back, or who did not hold on, is that of Scavney, a 3-second gap already. Matter of fact, he's going to be under some pressure here from Fire Up Flow as they make their way out of turns 3 and 4. Now, tell you what, this is looking like Lancey could be walking away to something good here. But should rain be in the picture, that will make it a different story. Ayahuasca to the inside on Cake Thomas. This is for the 6th spot, and I tell you what, this Alpine looking really good on the medium tires, and he gets down to the inside of the McLaren and takes the spot. Ayahuasca is on the charge here. Let's see if he's able to perhaps find another opportunity to get closer. Next up for him is Gottney Weeb. We'll have to wait and see. Fire Up Flow doing his best, trying to edge closer to Scavney. 8.5 tenths of a second here for Noganator. Might be under pressure from Weeb. Oh, actually, I tell you what, Ayahuasca nearly went straight into the back of Weeb there into 14. That would have been really messy for the two of them. Down the backstretch they go. Yeah, not quite close enough yet. Fire Up Flow. Oh, and we've got a yellow flag in the back, and it's Israel round again. This time, no front wing being lost, although that car being spun around in a car that in the initial stages of the day looked as if he'd have an opportunity to finish on the podium. Well, now looks like it'll be kind of a task to finish. Three-tenths of a second here back to Gottney Weeb. Is that of Ayahuasca? Down the straight they go, heading towards turn 7 as we have another yellow flag, this time for the Williams of Hightower. Should he have lost any front wing, which he hasn't. I was going to say, should he have lost any front wing, that would have been kind of a place for another safety car to happen. Because when you're at a street track like this and the front wing is gone, that typically yields at least a virtual safety car. But as we saw with Israel, it brought out the full. As we have another yellow flag, Israel has lost it this time, heading towards the pit lane, and he'll have to spin himself back round as Lancey leads the grid up towards turns 14. Ayahuasca to the inside of Gottney Weeb as we've got Chief Braids. I think Brian Mosser may have made an error as Israel has retired. That being in the pits, we're down to 12. Ayahuasca now 2.5 tenths of a second again for being on the medium tires. He may need to come a little bit more quickly here to the inside of Gottney Weeb. Of course, Weeb on the mediums as well. Still side by side, contact being made. If Ayahuasca can hang it around the outside here, it'd be a great move. But now through 18 and 19, this is where it gets risky. Wheels touching there again. Ayahuasca has to go wide. Of course, nothing really done wrong by Gottney Weeb there. That's a very difficult corner to try to go wheel to wheel in. At side by side now. As that was that. What the hell was that? Well, that was, I apologize, that was the Ferrari of the retired Ferrari of Israel. Why that car is on track and is now in the center of the track. This game is just such an absolute dumpster fire. 10th and a half here between the two of Ayahuasca and Gottney Weeb. As it turns out, that battle had resulted. Remember, they were going side by side through the final corner. Ayahuasca has been wearing down this Aston Martin driver for the better part of, well, safety car came in at lap, 14, 15. So a good couple of laps now as Ayahuasca doing well. But Weeb doing better. I mean, in fairness to Weeb, he is holding off Ayahuasca very, very strongly here. Down the straight they go, heading up towards turn 14. Looks to the inside. Nice little switch move there. Oh, Weeb's going to go deep. And into the wall goes Gottney Weeb in a virtual safety car on track, as that car locks up heavily, or at least misses his braking zone into 14, and is now minus a front wing as Gottney Weeb, which is unfortunate. Very much for him. He was having a good showing up until that point, and the battle with Ayahuasca proved a costly mistake. As I was saying, Ayahuasca was doing a brilliant job of wearing down Gottney Weeb, and when you wear down a driver for that long and you're constantly in the back of him, that does typically take quite a toll on the mental fortitude of the drivers, and mistakes do get made, and one was made there. Virtual safety car still on track, although the soft tire is on for Gottney Weeb here. I'll have to wait and see if perhaps... Well, I tell you what, this is a very lengthened virtual safety car here. Gottney Weeb making his way out now. Closest battle on track is going to come up to Noganator and Fire Up Flow here. DRS re-enabled, green flag back in the air. We'll say it is half a second between Anbu and Cake Thomas. We are yet to see any indication that rain could fall, although Gottney Weeb has just gone to the soft tires. So perhaps is that a clue that could be on its way. Of course, he had to choose a tire for stopping for changing his front wing, so yeah, that would be that. I'm actually surprised, and with the pace he had hit that wall, that car is still drivable, because he hit that wall a ton to the outside there. I mean, that is a head-on collision with the barriers. Usually that sort of thing is not very forgiving, but as it turns out, Gottney Weeb is at least able to carry on, and may actually find the back end of Hightower here rather shortly. Tell you what, was that Ayahuasca just hit that wall coming out of turn 16 to 17? That was a noticeable looking hit there to the barrier. I mean, that was right close. And meanwhile, Gottney Weeb's gotten around Hightower, up to 11th. As Ayahuasca and Noganator now, a bit of a good old wheel spin coming out of turn 3 for Ayahuasca now as they make their way heading towards turn 7. Ayahuasca's going to have to take the left side. I don't know why Noganator's actually decided to defend the outside. I would have much rather have defended that inside left line into the corner. But that's going to allow Ayahuasca at the 4th spot. I tell you what, Ayahuasca comes back and gets a podium after what he's had to deal with today. That would be one hell of a recovery drive. That would be actually one of the more impressive Grand Prix performances I've seen. Of course, only 13 cars on track, but either way, he did a last-to-first challenge, or a last-to-podium challenge. Well, pretty much twice, as remember, he had gotten his way back to 10th, had spun, fell back to 12th, and is now up to 4th after the safety car. Of course, on the medium tires, I'm not sure they'll last as long. Oh, but we've got an Alfa Romeo behind. It's Chief Braids, a full safety car on track. Or sorry, was it Noganator? I think it was Noganator who's missing the front wing. Yes, it is. Into the barrier at 14. Full safety car on track once more. Lancey decides to ignore pit entry. Scafney does as well. Fire Up Flow and Ayahuasca also staying that same ideal, as Noganator naturally will go in. Cake Thomas will stay out, and Boom Mason stays out. Adoltonian has yet to make that choice, and he will make a, well, I was going to say a half-hearted decision to come in. Half-hearted it was, because it initially looked as if he was going to come in, and then he didn't. Accidentally pulled out of the pit lane there. Well, safety car out on track once more. We're getting towards the last 10 laps of the Grand Prix, and I'm going to go ahead and assume that we're not going to see many other pit stops happen here. I will step aside until we get back to green. Interesting development this. We have had a couple of drivers pit here recently. Ayahuasca pits from 4th. Notice anything different about that Alpine? He is on grooved intermediate tires, and the rain has yet to fall. That tells me Ayahuasca has become David Attenborough here and is looking as if he will suddenly become the genius of the grid. If the rain is sure to fall, and Ayahuasca has decided to pit when no one else has. Ayahuasca could very well perform the first to last to back to first challenge victory here in Singapore. That is going to be an unbelievable storyline if he's able to make it happen. Again, the rain yet to fall. This is dry track that you're seeing now. Several other drivers decided to come in. Adoltonian came in. Hightower had come in recently. Both of which to dry compounded tires, as well as Noganator, as well as to Brian Mosser. Ayahuasca, the only of the lads to take a wet compound. And now, as you can see, the rain beginning to fall. We just had a couple of drops then. The rain is starting. Lancey in. Scavney will stay out. Bold. Fire Up Flow stays out. Cake Thomas stays out. And Boo Mason comes in. Gotney Weeb stays out. Noganator stays out. Adoltonian stays out. And Boo Mason on the way in, as said, and MMR Hightower comes into the pit lane. We have now a situation where should the rain continue to fall, it'll be that of Ayahuasca taking the top spot. Adoltonian did decide to stay out, where I think probably should he have pit for the intermediate tires, that would have been a very good decision for him. Not many people decided to come in just then. 4 drivers pit. 3 just then. Lancey and Boo Mason and Hightower all pitting, all intermediates. Adoltonian, despite pitting a lap ago, stayed out. And now, we are in a very interesting situation. We have currently every compound of tire except for the wets used on track right now. That is a fantastic sight to see. So we'll go ahead and assume that the safety car will be in this time by. Whether or not we see the likes of Scavney, Fire Up Flow, Cake Thomas, Chief Braids, Gotney Weeb, Noganator, Brian Monster, whether or not they decide to stay out on the track, that's going to be the question. Again, it will take at least, I would say, 2 to 3 laps for the water to really collect on the surface and make it greasy. But as you can see, the rain is falling under safety car as well. So that track, well, the drivers will be at this slower speed for a longer period of time. Ergo, they will have less time to spend on these drives. And already you can start to see it puddle just ever so slightly. You can kind of see it, not really. But what we do see is this. The safety car on the way into the pit lane, Scavney, now needs to make a decision. Does he stay out and chance it? Does he come in and play it safe and lose the positions? Whatever he does, the drivers behind will almost certainly copy or do the opposite. And with less than 10 laps to go, this is not the time to be making the wrong decisions. Out of 16 and 17, Scavney stays out on track. Fire Up Flow follows suit. So does Cake. Chief Braids stays out but goes well wide. He almost loses the spot to Gotney Weeb before they even get to the stripe. And Boo Mason into the pit lane. To the inside is Gotney Weeb. He'll take 4th. But as you can tell, the track now starting to get greasy. Fire Up Flow and Scavney really struggling. Those cars pushing wide. On the outside, Brian Mosser and Ayahuasca trading positions here. We'll have to wait and see if Ayahuasca suddenly becomes the driver to beat on these wet tires. To the outside, that was Chief Braids spinning. Coming out of turn 5, he's hit the inside wall. He's not lost any front wing. The track stays green. Gotney Weeb to the inside of Cake Thomas. He'll take 3rd. He might have a very fair shot here. Being on the soft tires, the grippiest remaining dry compounded tire may very well help him. But the rest of the grid, who does not have grooves on their tires, is going to be at an absolute snail's pace here on one of the most treacherous circuits on calendar, trying to find their way into the pit lane to get themselves in a position where they could finally be on the right foot. Ayahuasca versus that of Cake Thomas. He will easily find the right-hand side. He will, however, hit the wall going onto the bridge. Side by side behind is the pair of McLarens. And now as they exit the corner, Noganator does kind of get away pretty okay. Lancey on the intermediates, he knows he has to get up to Ayahuasca because if he doesn't, he will be beaten by the Alpine. As contact made between Noganator and Lancey. This is not what Lancey needs. And if you're asking Ayahuasca, that may go down to karma, as through the first corner of the race, remember, it was Ayahuasca versus Lancey. Ayahuasca had gone slightly wide, but as they exited turn 3, it was that of Israel who went in the middle, tried to split the gap, which resulted in Ayahuasca falling back to the back end of the grid. And now, after all is said and done, on the 24th lap of the Grand Prix, Ayahuasca is back in the lead. And by the way, Hightower is now third. Absolutely critical thinking required and delivered. And it has to be said, the majority of the drivers, all but 3, who have stopped here, it has to be said, what were they thinking? As Fire Up Flow, a 5-second penalty for speeding into the pit lane, albeit inadvertently, I'm sure. Or no, sorry, that was crossing the pit lane exit white line. Huh. Don't see that one too often. Exiting turn 9, down towards turn 10 now. Lancey behind Ayahuasca by 1.5 seconds. Remember, Ayahuasca had out-qualified Lancey by 1.3. I mean, this is an unprecedented turn of events here. The rain, you probably could have bet money on and saying, hey, it's Singapore, these things happen, these things will happen. And now, Ayahuasca atop the grid. As they make their way down the pit straight once more here. Well, I tell you what. Has to be said, I think Lancey is actually not necessarily reeling in Ayahuasca here, but he's at least keeping him in check. As they make their way now, exiting turn 5. Down the straight, heading towards, there's through 6 and into 7. We got 6 laps to go this next time by, as DRS has already been disabled. I sure hope it has, at least. We can assume now is the point in which if you make a mistake, you're going to pay for it dreadfully. Fire Up Flow with 5 seconds of penalty, trying to hold off Noganator here. As heading towards turn 7 they go. Again, the fact that Hightower able to take that 3rd spot. Now remember, we saw, as Gotney Weeb and Scavney side by side, Aston Martin of Gotney Weeb does get around the AlphaTauri in question. I'm a little surprised Scavney did not take the opportunity to come in with the safety car in pit, as Hightower has DNF'd from the 3rd spot at turn 13. Absolute heartbreak for the Williams driver, who to this point very much struggled, but made the right strategy call. Oh, goodness me, he's not going to forget this one. Well, the rain still falling, and now the safety car with 6 laps to go. This has suddenly become a race to the finish. And if Lancey into the pit lane. What's going on here with our Dutchman? Another set of intermediate tires. Of course, he's not going to lose any positions here, it doesn't appear. So a fresh set of intermediates for Lancey. Ayahuasca takes the back end of the safety car here. As Hightower unfortunately leaves the session. So Fire Up Flow into the pit lane. He'll be serving his 5-second penalty. It's an additional set of the intermediates for him. So Ayahuasca first, Lancey Pitts second, Gotney Weeb up to 3rd. It's been a chaotic day for him. He's had a couple of great moves and great opportunities. I think did spin as well at some point, although for the time being up 10 positions. Fire Up Flow will come out of the pit lane in 10th. So that will leave all except Fire Up Flow and Anbu Mason as having gained a position on track. Of course, that's also barring Ayahuasca, Lancey, and Scavney, but in fairness to those three, they've all tasted the top spot at some point or another in today's Grand Prix. Now remember, Ayahuasca, at the beginning of the previous safety car, had pit for the intermediate tires. He got the notification that the rain was on its way. He went early, and as the safety car was in, the rain started to fall. Only some drivers decided to pit. Those who didn't, the likes of Scavney, that is absolutely the reason why he's in 4th right now. He could very well be leading this Grand Prix, or at least somewhere in those podium 3 positions. Instead, he will have to work for that 3rd spot. So 5 laps to go this time by. Safety car still on track after the incident involving Hightower at turn 13. We had Israel retire in the pit lane probably about 15 laps ago. No, probably less than that, surely. 10 laps ago, let's say. And now, again, Ayahuasca's been quick. Okay, so that's the thing with Ayahuasca right now. He was very, very quick in the dry. In the wet, we don't truly know. I mean, this is the guy who took the top spot here, having made a great strategical decision. Whether or not he will actually be able to stay ahead of Lancey is a different question. Both of these drivers, again, we don't know like how they are in these wet conditions. They very well could be very topsy-turvy or exactly the same. We could see Lancey atop, we could see Ayahuasca atop at the end of the race. Could very well see Gottney Weeb either, as well. Tell you what, it's no Singapore, but I tell you what, where I'm from, man, it has been very, very humid. I don't typically sweat on a broadcast, but here I am in the attic of my house, and I'm sweating. Perhaps it's just the excitement. It could be very well be it. Could go ahead and assume that maybe the safety car will be in this time by. It'll be 4 laps to go at the stripe this time. We're waiting for Anbu Mason and Fire Up Flow to rejoin the tail end of the grid. They're making their way through turn 8 and through turn 10, respectively. Safety car looks as if it will stay out another lap here. So if that's the case, we will have 3 laps to decide this Grand Prix, assuming it comes in on lap 29. It will definitely stay out for 28, though, that much we know. So these drivers can count on 3 laps of racing speed to decide a winner of the Singapore Grand Prix. Ayahuasca, who had to fight tooth and nail to get himself back into the top 5, and then just nails the strategy, gets himself back to the top in which he started. Remember, started on pole, had the incident in the beginning with Lancey and Israel, went back down to the last position, worked his way back to 10th, spun again back down to 12th, and now atop the grid. I mean, if this is the drive that earns Ayahuasca the win here, that will be one very much... it'll be a legendary result from him, that's for sure. Lancey, I'm sure he'll understand the severity and the complexity of what he'll need to do on this restart. As far as Lancey is concerned, he needs to absolutely get away well along with Ayahuasca. These two really need Or Lancey really needs to stay on the same wavelength as the Alpine driver for when the safety car comes in. Because I'm assuming Ayahuasca will definitely be playing some sort of trickery here on the restart, as you should. And Lancey on the ropes here, realistically, as the safety car in at the end of this lap. I will say this, the rain is falling in Singapore. Doesn't appear yet to be enough for the wets. Although I tell you what, if it falls at this rate continually, we might just see the wet tires be a valid option. As you can start to see already some puddling to the inside of the circuit. They're actually starting to see a lot of puddling now. That's usually the telltale sign that the wet tires should be in play soon. But this time by will be 3 laps to go to decide a winner of the Singapore Grand Prix. Will it be Ayahuasca, who started on pole, fell back, came back, and on top once again, or will it be Lancey, who led from pretty much start to finish, well, not start to finish, but start to that last safety car, and now, mano a mano, perhaps an additional mono with Gottney Weeb in the picture, as Ayahuasca gets away. Lancey, I think, kind of caught onto it just as well. 3 laps to go to decide a winner. Down the pit straight they go. Lancey in pursuit. Again, Lancey has had a stranglehold over Sector 2. Whether or not he performs just as well through Sectors 1 and 3 is going to be the question, as we have a yellow flag. It's fire up Flo, I believe, at the back. Something's happened with him. Exiting Turn 5, Lancey's had a bit of a wiggle there, but it's right even. Both drivers very, very even on pace and time and battery here. 2.5 tenths of a second in through Turn 7. And now Lancey had a bit of a peek to the inside through 8. Oh, perhaps a little contact there. Will now look to the outside. Bit of a wiggle there for Ayahuasca. Lancey to the inside. Off the error from Ayahuasca. And Lancey gets the top spot once again. Lancey takes advantage of the situation given to him, and the Dutchman back on top as they make their way heading towards the bridge. Got to be careful here. Not a lot of grip in the dry. Through the wet, it's got to be unbearable. Not only the wet, but what appears to be the heavy wet as well. Down the straight, heading towards turn 14. Should we be nearing opportunity for the wet tires as Fire Up Flow retires in through turn 13. Too late for a safety car now. We're assuming that the wet tires... I mean, if this race had gone on for another 7 laps, the wet tires would absolutely be in play. They will have to survive driving on ice on these intermediate tires, as we will have 2 laps to go this time by. Of all the drama that's happened today, if it ends with a Lancey win after all is said and done, Ayahuasca will surely feel as if he's missed out. Lancey will feel as he's absolutely earned it, which he has, but Ayahuasca still has another 2 laps to make something happen, as these 2 drivers have been dead even on pace ever since the jump. Of course, it was the mistake by the Alpine driver which resulted in the move being made that was exiting turn 9. An unorthodox place of the track to make something happen, but the rain falling in cats and dogs in buckets. Insert metaphor here, as it is properly pouring, and Ayahuasca a 3-second penalty for multiple warnings. And unless Lancey properly shits the bed now, I think you can expect the McLaren driver to walk away with the win. Gottney Weeb will, I think, if he holds on, will take the 2nd spot. And what a day that he's had, up 10 positions. It'll be 11 after it's said and done if he's able to hold on. The driver who did not put together a timed attempt in qualifying will step onto the 2nd step of the podium here, if it all holds true. Scavney in position. I think he may get the 3rd spot as well, in fairness. I think he may have to work a little bit to get back to Weeb. But Lancey, through the final sets of corners for the penultimate time now, has 1 lap to go before he is crowned the winner of the Singapore Grand Prix. But you can see the rain really falling, puddling up on the surface. any mistake that is made now is crucially one that will throw away a podium or a race win. He has 1 lap to keep this car clean. Should he pick up a 3-second penalty, it'll be all to play for between himself and Ayahuasca, but we have yet to see, I think even once, Lancey exceed track limits. Ayahuasca, by the way, the only track limits penalty of the day. And it's a 1.5 seconds between the top 2 in through turn 7, although Lancey had a bit of a tricky one on the brakes there. We do also have Scavney and Gottney-Weeb battling for the 3rd spot. This one may go fun. Oh, I think Ayahuasca may have had a bit of a tank slapper going through turn 8. I think maybe did the left rear tire hit the wall on the outside. He's lost a good 0.6 of a second back to Lancey after what it already was. Making their way through the Singapore sling for the final time. All 3 of these drivers in position to finish on the podium. In what order they'll be is the next question. Ayahuasca obviously on the ropes with his penalty, but still plenty of track left to go for mistakes to be made. As down the straight they go for the final time. Next up the back straight, the final straight. As Lancey begins that now, exits nicely. Gottney-Weeb, oh, Gottney-Weeb has slid a little bit. Scavney slides as well. Who gets better on acceleration? I'm not sure. I think Gottney-Weeb may have it. But making his way through 16 and 17 for the final time is, oh, Scavney to the inside. Gottney-Weeb goes deep into the corner. Well, it'll be Lancey taking the win here in Singapore after all is said and done. Ayahuasca will finish, I think, on the podium. Yes, he will. Scavney gets 2nd. Ayahuasca 3rd. Gottney-Weeb loses the car going through turn 16 and finishes 4th, but driver of the day no less. Well, after it's all said and done here in Singapore, what a fantastic race that was. Be sure to join us next week when we head to the circuit Paul Ricard for one of the final rounds of the F1 23 game and of the 12th season of the Midwest Esports League Hotspot. It's been a pleasure joining you once again here. We'll see you next time.